Excuse-moi. Hey!
Hey, high school is a ruthless world and it is usually looks that dictates if you survive. Young Sok is an ugly, overweight student who is the subject of brutal bullying. After a video of him being beat up is uploaded online, he becomes ridiculed nearly nationwide, effectively killing his social life. When he suddenly gains a smoking hot bond, he decides it is his turn to experience popularity, but he has to balance living a double life. Careful not to let a secret out. Young Sok is bullied at school for being ugly and overweight. He has no friends or allies at school. The slightest misunderstanding gets him pushed around. He takes this out on his mother, who he thinks does not understand, after 2 bullies. Taesung and Mezek bet and who can hit his head with a football first, his mother suddenly rushes to defend him. But this has the opposite effect, and he's viewed as a tattletale who has to run to his mother. Witnessing his bullying firsthand, his mother transfers him to J1 High. But because she has to work in their neighborhood, he will have to live alone. When he reaches his new apartment, he decides to start fresh and live with confidence while exploring the new city. He bumps into a girl Mi Jin, whose friend Jin Ung begins beating him up. Videos of his humiliation is uploaded online and his social life is effectively destroyed before it even began. He cries himself to sleep, but he suddenly wakes up in a brand new Hollywood A-list actor body. He sees his old body lying at the floor and considers contacting the hospital, but he decides to use this new self to start a completely new life. When he attends J1 Vocational High School, the next day, he quickly becomes the talk of the town and women swoon all over him. This time it's his turn to be popular as young SA takes his seat, he's chagrined to learn and he's seatmates with Jin Song, the same guy who gave him a beating the day before. The class. Madonna instantly tries flirting, which the rest of the girls expected she'd do during lunch. Hanyul cozy up to young Sok and asks why he took a fashion design in their vocational school. In truth, it was the only course available to him with his attendance and grades, but he lies and says he finds fashion design interesting. The next day, young Sok is exhausted from the day before, having spent the entire day testing the physical limits of his. He learns that it is a near-perfect physical specimen, boasting increased strength and stamina. But when he falls asleep, he wakes up in his old body. He manages to get a part-time job for his old self at a local convenience store using his hot body's charisma charm.
Expensive new sneakers, but this attracts the attention of Jin Sung and his gang. Strangely, Jin Sung lets him go without a fuss, and his friends comment that he's mellowed down lately. Namu attempts to show off an expensive chrome ring, but he's completely overshadowed by JR. A quiet but extremely wealthy student, clad from head to toe, an expensive designer. In comparison, Naso observes that Young So's outfit is in tatters. The girls only ignore it because he's so good-looking. Meanwhile, Burning Knuckle is left without their leader. After Bosco is absent, Bum JY tries to interpret his gibberish text and announces to the gang that they are to lay low. For now later, Young Suk saves Dua from being bullied by Hone, but he's ungrateful while on the phone with his mother. Jay all overhears that it is his birthday. The next. Later, he sees the office lady again, who continues to encourage him to work out the next day. Dua expresses distrust at how nice Young Sok is acting towards him. And two groups plot Young So's downfall, a group led by Nama who is grown, resentful over how much attention he has been getting. And Dra, a radical member of the Burning Knuckle uncle who wants to pay him back for beating their boss Bosco. But Jay has noted Young So's kindness after observing him over the past few. The next day, Jay gifts Young Sok his birthday with duffel bags stuffed with designer clothes. In the process, he also takes care Afra and his goons the following day. Naso plans to embarrass Young So's ragged clothes, but they're stunned when he walks in fully equipped the latest trends in designer fashion, making the girls swoon over him even more. Ask some more. He got his outfit from SK glances at JR. And replies that he got it from a friend. Meanwhile, Dua prepares rap lyrics for an audition based on his everyday expiry. He thinks of Young Sok, who he says has a fake smile. Dua is prevented from auditioning after the producer sees his appearance and instead signs Ho Bin, one of his bullies. The frustration seeps into his lyrics as he continues to be scorned and whispered about from those around him. The next day, he sees a poster from Jae Won's talent show. After being kicked around by Jae Ho, he decides to enter. When he arrives home to his grandmother's tuck, Bo Stol Hon and his confidants arrive as well. They pretend to be BuIIied was friends and take advantage of her hospitality, although they compliment her cooking. But the next day, they spread rumors about her tuck. Baki Stol being disgusting, adding to Deko's anger. Later, Hobin discovers Deko's talent show application and publicly humiliates him in the sea. Able to watch any longer, Ya confronts him and an unlikely ally in Jin Song, startlingly Bosco and the Burning Knuckle gang back him up, forcing Hon to drop the subject and leave. Bosco tries to start another fight with Young Sok, but Bum Jae pulls him away. Young Sok finds Deko's torn talent show application and keeps it. The next day, he tries to give it back to Dua, but he's still distrustful of him, suspecting he's only nice so that he can become more popular. He strives to be like Eminem, a rapper from humble and tumultuous beginnings. However, Hon finds him writing his lyrics again and rips it up in front of his eyes. Meanwhile, Hanyul asks JK if he plans to enter at the talent show, but he says it is not for him. He tries practicing his singing again while he was alone, which has always been a hobby of his. Dua hears his voice and invites him to sing together at the talent. DKU invites Yuk into his zone and is initially worried that he might find it disgusting, but the two bond over their mutually poor upbringing as well as their guardian's use of newspapers. DKU plays an updated rendition of Young So's song and he hopes that with his singing and his rapping, they can take the talent show by storm. Young Suk is impressed by DEC's talents and the two continue to bond. They encounter Da's grandmother in Young Su's respect for her catches Da off guard. Meanwhile, Hogan's record label gives them a song written by a world-class songwriter and composer to perform at the school festival. Young Sok and Dua begin practicing their song when Jiho's jaw drops at how good they are. That night Young Sok manages to continue practicing in his other body, allowing him to do so without. The girl from the past nights notices his pleasant singing voice and treats him to a throat lozenge. Their practice is progressing smoothly and Akua thinks Yuk must be some kind of genius for being able to pick up a musical sense so quickly. However, Hon later pulls Dua and go into an alleyway to beat them up for other reason than thinking they're annoying for trying so hard to compete at the talent show. Jiho's nearly forced into beating up Dua, but Hon is called away by his record label. The pair meet with a fat Young Sok and they bond over the mutual bullying experiences, even competing over. They begin making fun of the video they took of Young Sok and go fighting, and in the drunken rage, Yuk destroys their phone, but passes out soon after he awakens in his old body and he races back to the restaurant. Introducing himself as a friend of Young So's. As they leave the party, Yuk drags out his odd body into an alleyway. They pass by a punching game, and Jin Song teaches Yuk how to punch as he does. He tells Young Sok not to get himself beat up again left alone. Young Sok attempts to throw the punch just as he was taught, but he simply grazes it. Bosco happens upon the game just as Young Sok leaves, and he's shocked to see that the cuss ripped apart by his punch. The next day, Young Suk befriends and eats with Go, which is seen as a bizarre combin. Meanwhile, his mother visits his apartment and is confused to see her son sleeping and not at school. Ya comes to see his mother there and explains he's a friend of her son's. She's concerned that he took up a night job and asks if Yuk has got some time to talk. He takes her out to a Starbucks, which can't seem to turn off his chick magnet. She's shocked by the exorbitant prices, having only lived on instant coffee her entire life. She asks if her son is being bullied at school since she had always been busy working to make ends meet. To notice he reassures her that he isn't and that he has made wonderful friends. He thanks him for being a great friend to her son and gets up to leave. Meanwhile, Bosco overhears their entire conversation, misunderstands the entire context, and assumes that hot young Sok is bullying the fat young Sok. Young Sok helps his mother tie up some used cardboard that she plans to sell for scrap. She reveals that she took up a second job and asks him not to tell her son. Bosco sees this and assumes that young Sok is also committing extortion, and as soon as she leaves, he pulls young Sok aside because both refuse to properly or understand one another. They end up having a fist fight. Bosco takes up a stance from ANC of Muay and his brutal strikes manage to bend even metal. Sok realizes he might die if he gets it, so he decides to fight. He throws a right straight just as he was trained, Bosco dodges it only to be hit by a spinning elbow, knocking him out completely. He always Sok contrasts an unconscious Bosco to bum JY. The next evening, Bosco approaches fat young Sok and apologizes that he couldn't get the money back. He encourages him to train and says that he's strong. Recalling how young Sok tore apart the punching cushion. Young Sok begins to train in the convenience store and a beautiful customer. The manager initially does not want to hire the fat young Sok, but he impresses him with his familiarity with cigarette brands. One evening Jenin Song and his goons attempt to purchase alcohol, despite being under. When young Sok refuses to take their fake ID, Jin Song recognizes him as the fat guy he beat up the other day. He gets irritated when he recognizes his name and begins beating him up again, taking a naked photo of him as insurance. Later, his mother gives him a call and asks how he's doing, and he says that everything is going great. The next day, Jin Song shows photos of the fat young Song to some of his classmates. They begin making fun of him for being over. But when hot young Sok overhears them badmouth his mother, he speaks up. Jenin Song does not take oddly to this and challenges him to a fight. A crowd begins to gather around him, and Jenin Song wants to impress me, Jenin, whom he likes. Although Jin Song is famous for his fast punches, young Sok has been bullied since he could walk. Now that he's in a body that can react to punches, he effortlessly dodges Jin Song's attacks, humiliating him and knocking him out with a single punch. Rumors of his attractiveness and victory over Jin Song spread among the other cliques and they paint a target. And this young upstart's back, a boy named Go steals a cell phone charger while young Sok is on the job. He chases after him into an alley, revealing that Go was coerced into stealing it by 3 bullies hand. GK, JDU, and G-Sok. Upon seeing young Sok, they force him and Go to fight, offering to release Go from his status as a gopher if he wins, but they're interrupted by Bosco, the leader of the Burning Knuckle gang. He intimidates the 3 bullies into fleeing before telling Go to make sure young Sok stays out of trouble, and he begins to tear up. The next day, Hanyul tries getting closer with the young Sok again when Ya calls out to Bosco as he enters the cafeteria. He interprets this as an act of hostility and attempts to subdue him with his famed bare knuckle. Although said to be impossible to break from yelling, Sok wrestles free with a single hand. MK, the gang's second in command, puts a stop to the confrontation, which he later comments is not out of young Sok's safety, but for Bosco's yelling, so's fame only grows because of this. And he pressed by his strength and GSOC invites him out for drinks at night. They're joined by Annual and Jin Song, which makes him even more. When they ask him about his living situation, they misunderstand his living with a friend who works at night as extremely dangerous criminal. Young Ya comments that Young and Mi Jin look like a couple, causing him to become very friendly. Who had it worse? But they share that ever since the good-looking young Sok joined their school, their lives had. Bosco overhears them and confirms for himself that young Sok is actually a good person and realizes that he had been mistaken all along. The next day, young Sok and Dua finalize the last arrangements of their song and they are certain it will be a big hit. Meanwhile, Hone looks over the performance list and realizes that those 2 will be going last. He hopes to crush their hopes and dreams once and for all. On the day of the festival, the girl who had always been visiting young Sok at the convenience store, So Young visits along with John Gillen, her body. While making final preparations with the Kua, Jak sees and chases after her into a parking lot, but he had forgotten that this is their first time meeting with him in his hot body. Young rebuff him, writing him off as another shallow playboy. When Young Sok persists, Jong Geon grips him to shut him down. Shockingly, he manages to break free from his grip. But Jong Geon is a professional, trained fighter, and he mops the floor with Young. Bosco arrives, declaring himself to be Young So's friend. He takes the full force of Jong Geon's punch, but he asks him to remove his glasses because he refuses to fight people wearing them. When he does, Jong Geon is revealed to have jet black eyes before they can fight. So John persuades Jong Geon to drop it afterwards. The two sit by a bench and share a cup of milk together, but Young Sok overhears that the talent show is about to. He rushes backstage to meet the Kua, and they were clothed, slow to them by Jae Yul. Hon and his friend perform on stage, and Dua notices that their song is unusually polished, causing him to suspect it was written by professional. When the song ends, Hon gives the Kua a punch in the gut, but he retorts that he'll return the favor through the power of song. Once on stage, the MC pokes fun at how different the two look from each other. When the music begins to play, Young Sok freezes up from stage. But Dua picks up the slack and begins his rap verse right away, easing his tensions. The two perform the song, reminding themselves of the roots of the lyrics, their harsh upbringing and struggles of their daily lives. The song is met with thunderous applause, pressing even the director of the record label that signed Ho Ben. When the song ends, the students acclaim the duo's musical prowess, and even DKU is rapping his. Afterwards, the record label offers to sign Young Sok, not Dua, but he turns them down later. Young Sok DWA and go gather outside the convenience store to watch a video of their performance, which has immediately gone viral. Although disappointed he was not considered for the label, they were remarked that while they were on stage, their looks did not matter, only their voice. The video is seen by DG, a famous performer, and So Young, who's revealed to also have a twin body. She can transfer her consciousness. Days pass and Suk has adapted well into his double life, making friends on both sides and continuing to improve himself bit by bit. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on the notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.